here in Maine now for 11 years.
My name is Jessica Stewart. My pronouns are she, her, and I have 3 high schoolers and a fourth grader, and I have 6-month-old twins who are future Tremont students.
I'm Carrie Hayes. I live in Bass Harbor, been on the school board now since July when I was appointed, and just took on another 3-year term. I've also been serving on the high school trustees for the last 4 years. I have a sophomore who's doing his year at Maine School of Science and Math this year and hasn't decided yet if he's coming back to MDI or not. And I have an 8th grader who is looking forward to getting up to the high school next year. But I love Tremont School and want to keep supporting our elementary as well. So I'm looking forward to being there for everybody.
My name's Roger St. Amand. I live just down the street from Jessica in Bass Harbor. And I've also got a 3rd grader who's in class with Jessica's 4th grader now for our shared pods, and a couple in high school. So
I'll go next. I'm Eliza Bishop. I'm new to the board. We have 2 little kids, a 5-year-old who goes to the nursery school in Northeast Harbor and a 1st grader at Tremont. And yeah, we've been living over here for several years, but I'm really excited to be more part of the Tremont community. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for serving, Eliza.
Mm. Do the other non-board members want to introduce themselves?
Sure, I'll go ahead. I'm Mark Gauss, Superintendent of Schools, been here since July of 2016. And I also have a new baby, but it's a puppy. So, I've been really blessed to serve in this community and in this district, and just really appreciate there's been really strong leadership throughout my tenure from Tremont, and it's really glad to see, great people coming on board, and a lot of things that are on the horizon right now. So Tremont's always had a strong representation, strong voice. So it's good to see that continue, and look forward to working with you folks.
I'm Jandria True. I'm the principal at the Tremont Consolidated School, and incredibly fortunate to be in this position. I'm super grateful for everybody that decided to take out papers again. And Eliza, it's so great to have you on here. I'm really excited to get to work closely with you. And I think that this is my 5th year, maybe, in this position. I think 5.5 years, which is kind of mind blowing. So yeah, I just feel really fortunate to be able to say that I'm in this position.
I'm Josh Young. I'm the technology coordinator for the district, and I'm just hanging out in the background, making sure everything's running correctly.
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you, Josh. We appreciate all your service over the last year.
Do you want me to introduce myself, or?
Go for it.
Okay. I'm Tanya Prentice. I've been teaching for about 14 years. Currently, I teach 5th grade, all subjects. I have 3 daughters. Mine are all grown, 20 to 24, 2 out of college, and my youngest just finished her sophomore semester and is hoping to go back in person this fall. My husband is a retired firefighter paramedic, so he will also be with me.
Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Feel free to let them know that Tremont is always in need of volunteers.
Yeah.
He's already been searching. He's
Okay, there you go. Great.
So it looks like we've confirmed board member attendance through our introductions. Jandria, are you taking notes, or is Dan taking them from afar, or how is
Daniel and I communicated. He is taking notes from afar. Thanks, Daniel.
thank you, Daniel.
So the voucher went around. Hopefully everyone has signed it via DocuSign, and if you aren't familiar with that or aren't getting them, Eliza, let me know and I'll touch base with you about that. And so approval of minutes from the 8th of April. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the minutes?
I move to approve the minutes from April 8th, 2021.
Second. Carrie.
Okay. Now, are we going roll call or can we say aye now? What's our,
Jessica,
Roll
yeah, I'm sorry. If you want, as long as you've identified all the people here, it's being recorded, which you have, you can do, you don't have to do a roll call. You can do show of hands and just acknowledge what the vote was at the end. Thanks.
okay. So why don't we do a thumbs up to approve the minutes? Anyone not approving? No, so it's unanimous. Okay, we have one public comment that is attached. Hopefully people have read that. Mark, was there any more or anyone, any more public comment that came in the intervening time?
Not that I'm aware of, Jessica, but if there is, that we'll certainly forward it and attach it to the agenda.
Okay.
Just, I don't know if this is the appropriate time, but just, you know, we were talking, Jessica, if I may, I'm hopeful that we can return to in-person meetings soon, so that, and receive public comment, obviously in person. But the other piece too, that this came up at the AOS meeting, and I just want folks to know the work in the policy committee around public participation, public comment is actually to promote having people be able to have voice and continue to do that. So I know we had some questions come out on that, and I just want to make sure people were aware of that. Thank you.
Thank you. I was also at the policy committee meeting, same one, and can, yes, definitely confirm that. Thanks, Mark.
Jessica, is this a good time to do nominations for chair, or?
We're going to do that in after the reports and updates, I believe.
Oh, okay. I didn't see it on the agenda, so good.
It's down under action items, I think. So if that's good, we will proceed with Jandria's update, principal's report, and then the subcommittee updates.
Sure, thank you. So just, I guess I would start by just mentioning that last week we were able to celebrate, and I hope our teachers felt and our staff felt honored last week during Teacher and Staff Appreciation Week. Down a little bit further in my report, it talks just about PTO updates and whatnot, and our PTO is really, really remarkable. We were greeted Jessica Bass, I need to just give a shout out to you and Spiff, because every night I left school, sometimes around 7 o'clock, and they were out front setting some things up, getting posters up and getting the table decorated. And then the next morning I'd come in and they'd be there like dropping stuff off in the morning. And I know that they had help of other community and PTO members to get together all the gifts that we were given, but there was some sort of like delicious and wonderful treat or like fun and funny treat for us to come into every single morning. And that was just, it felt really nice. I think people really appreciated that, and it allowed us just to feel a lot of love. So thank you so much to everybody, and a huge shout out to the teachers and staff who just like, you know, it is no secret that people are just tired right now, and they are really just picking themselves up and pushing through the last few weeks of school, and they're happy to do that because they love the kids so much. But this has been just a really rugged year, and they have, you know, they never amaze me with the fact that they will go above and beyond all the time. And you know, I just was having a conversation with somebody yesterday who just said, like, we can get through this the next couple of weeks. It's hard, but we can get through this. And so they deserve all the praise that we can possibly give them, because they're really tremendous people and tremendous educators and professionals. So there's a few other things on there I wanted. I could walk through this whole entire report, but I feel like sometimes it's easier for you folks to probably just read through it. So we do have some field trips that have been taking place lately. We're following all safety protocols. when we're taking kids on field trips and trying to be really mindful to just do as much outside as possible. And we do have some visitors who at times are coming to the school grounds. If we can do things outside, then we're doing that, but we're trying to slowly get some programs going that can continue to just enrich what we're doing with our students and our curriculum. We were able to hold both of the virtual pre-K parent information sessions over the last couple of weeks, myself, Julie Meltzer, and then Rhonda Fortin. We had a handful of people that attended. It wasn't an overwhelming number, but it was great to be able to gauge some interest and answer some questions, and hopefully people found that to be useful, the people that did attend. And we also have some 8th grade events that we're in the middle of planning. Shout out to Katrina Linscott for her help with all things 8th grade. We have just booked a day trip to Adventure Bound, where we'll be taking the 8th graders to go whitewater rafting after their promotion. Their promotion will be on Monday, June 7th. And there are some guidelines that we're following for that do, that do have some limits in terms of how many people are there per child and whatnot. So we are working with families to figure out the best way to set that up and to just figure out who will be there so that we can make that a pretty special event for them. It was wonderful last year, and it will be outside this year again. All of our co-curricular information I've linked that in because I noticed my principal's report just kept getting longer and longer and longer. So a few of those things I just created separate documents for, and I've linked them in there so that they don't take up quite so much space in this report. But we're in the middle of conducting end of year assessments. So there's a variety of them that we do at this time of year. There's the high leverage math assessments, NWA, the NWA window is open. DRAs are taking place. The 5th graders, we've decided as a district that our 5th graders will be taking the Meridian Science Assessment. And so they'll be doing that in science classes with Mrs. Siddons in a couple of weeks, writing prompts, those kinds of things that are taking place. And I wasn't sure if Julie Meltzer was going to be here tonight or not, but since she isn't with us, she had at one point wanted to do a data presentation. And so I'd put that in there, but she's not here, so I will remove that. I have, however, I've been working with Julie, and I'm going to be talking more with the leadership team on Monday to be just discussing needs for Tremont, the use of ESSER 3 funds, and we're trying to just figure out how we work together, if there are things that we can work together on to get kind of the biggest bang for our buck, or what things are needed individually in each building to be able to meet the needs of students directly related to COVID-19. And so I will, as that plan unfolds and develops, I will make sure to share that with this group as well. But I want to have a chance to be able to work with my building leaders on that. In terms of, we get to staffing updates, which is very exciting. So you all just met Tanya Prentice, who will get to nominate in a little bit and officially take a vote, but I'm super excited to be able to bring Tanya's name forward this evening, and it's been a pleasure to get to speak with her several times, both through an interview with my staff and then with Mark, and I'm really excited about bringing her on and her enthusiasm and knowledge and experience and whatnot in the areas of math and science. And I think in this situation, we'll just be working with, Tanya will be moving, hopefully, if you all approve, into the middle school science position, replacing Christina Siddons. We do have several positions that are currently advertised that you may see. I don't know how many of you are checking serving schools, but they're posted there sometimes once in a while in the newspaper, depending on what the position is. I do want to just mention that every year we have a gentleman named Bob Stewart who comes in and works with Liz Rabaska to be able to just get students thinking a little bit about their futures and their aspirations and long-term plans and goals and higher education. And then the sixth graders write essays, and those essays are entered into a contest. And so we had 3 sixth graders this year who whose essays were selected as winners from Tremont. Tayshawn Link, Hannah Lawson, and Warwick Black were this year's winners. So congratulations to those students. And every student that is named a winner in the state receives a $100 college scholarship to just kind of keep them excited and thinking about their futures. Again, a huge thank you to the PTO, all those members who helped us out during Teacher Appreciation Week. They put together a video for us with messages from students, which just choked all of us up, or at least choked me up. And then we currently have Recharge that is underway, which is really exciting that we've been able to get some of our extracurricular activities going and keep those things going throughout the year. Ellen Kelly is working with a small group of individuals to try to we're not going to be able to do a play, and it does not need to be anything elaborate, but just to try to give them an arts experience, because it seems like the arts have been kind of limited this year, or they have been limited this year. We also have track and baseball and softball that are taking place right now. And as I'm looking through, I'm trying to make sure that I'm not missing anything. But anyway, so that's where we're at right now with extracurricular and activities. And I think that's about it. I think that's my report for the evening. Any questions?
I have one question. Have you heard in terms of numbers next year, because we're going to talk about space later, is the upcoming vaccination law going to, not COVID, just, regular vaccines, do you anticipate that impacting the numbers in any significant way of students?
I have not heard. I'm aware of one family right now that has said they'll continue homeschooling their child, but I haven't heard of significant numbers that will be impacted by that. But I'm also not the one making any phone calls or directly reaching out to the families. Nurse Kelsey is doing that, but she has not reported to me that she's hearing a significant number of families that are saying, no, thank you. So at this time, I would say that I'm not aware of a large impact on the Tremont school population.
I do have a quick question.
Jessica?
Yeah.
Jessica, if I may, just on a related note, sorry, I'm not aware of anything of significance across any of our member schools in the district in that area. Thank you.
Someone had a question.
Yeah, it's
go for it.
okay if I go ahead. I do have a question, and now that with the new CDC guidelines about not having to wear a mask and outside, how has that affected Tremont, and has it, where are we at with that?
So actually, it's fascinating to watch. So, I mean, at the beginning of this whole thing, I think that people were just panicked about and really concerned about how kids were going to handle this. And I will continue to say this over and over and over, that our students are brilliant. Like, they just handle things. They read the crowd, they feed off from the adults' energy, and they just pick it up, and they just can do things that oftentimes I think we underestimate them on. Kids are just fascinating little creatures, and they just blow my mind on a regular basis in a really positive way. So they've done a brilliant job with it. I went in and spoke to classes and talked to them about where we were at for things. And to be honest with you, we've had a lot of opportunity. We've had the ability for kids to be able to let us know if I need a mask break or I'd like to take my mask off at recess. We could help them find a safe place to do that. And for most kids are just choosing to continue playing closely with their peers and being able to interact the way they want to, and they just keep their mask on like they've done all along. I went in and complimented some middle school classes the other day because they were outside playing baseball and just throwing a baseball around and whatnot. And they handled it brilliantly. Like, they were spread out across the field. They were well over 6 feet away from each other. The adults were right there to kind of supervise and make sure everything was going well. Several of them chose to have their masks off, and several of them chose to keep their masks on. So, it's been one of those things that, I think because we started things out that way, that if you need a break, if you need to take your mask off, if you want to, communicate with us and we'll help make sure it's done in a safe way. It really hasn't made a significant difference. The kids choose, they know that if they're going to engage in close play or running around on the playground equipment and stuff like that, then they still have to have it on. But they just, They just are used to it. And they just kind of continue to do it.
Jessica, just
Yes.
if I may, just to add on a broader scope back
Sure.
to Jessica Bass. Maybe a question, Jessica. I don't want to read anything into it, but there's a lot of things that are evolving and we've got events coming up, and so I can give you the broader scope on that. And again, kudos to the kids and the staff and the community. When I go out and about, I just see people wearing masks. And I think that's a good thing. We're going to continue to follow the science. We've done that from day one. We're going to continue to follow the DOE and the CDC guidelines. We've done that. It's really stood us well. So I think specifically, I sent something out to the staff and the board today about the governor's announcements. But if you really look at it carefully and closely and read it, and I would encourage everybody to do that, schools are different places, number one, and we have continued to follow the guidelines, but this just came out today, and we need time to step back, process with all the principals, the nurses. I meet with the Down East COVID-19 task force weekly. I'm sure it'll be a topic of conversation. That includes businesses, the Chamber of Commerce, public safety, public health. So all of those things bode well for us. And I think what it says is our communities have done a really great job. And to be in this position, to be able to do that, if we continue to do the right things, we're going to continue to be able to ease these restrictions, I guess is what I'm saying. And I see no reason why, if the data stays the way it is now, that we're not going to be able to follow these guidelines. However, we've said from day one, we reserve the right that if things spike or there's reasons to tighten up, that we may have to do that. We don't want to do that. So I'm really, really encouraged. And I just want to give a shout out to our kids and staff. I want to encourage people to get vaccinated. That's a choice, but to do that. And regardless, right now, on school grounds, as Jandria said, the kids have the opportunity to do those breaks, but it's all about proximity. We're going to return, hopefully, to in-person board meetings. At those in-person meetings inside, we're going to have physical distancing and masking, and we're going to ask our visitors to do that too inside. So there's a lot of things moving, but I think we can remember this or keep this in mind. There's less than 30 days of school left. And that's pretty amazing what our kids and our communities and our staff have done. And so to be in a position to be able to do this stuff is really good. And I hope we can keep moving forward. And that's the message I've been giving to all the schools, whether they're on the outer islands, it's Tremont, wherever. And I'm just really proud of the nurses and the administrative team. Sorry it was so long-winded, but I just wanted to take an opportunity because we've got a lot of things coming up, graduations, promotional ceremonies. And, I guess I'll close by this. Our athletic events, our activity events, track and field, all these people, we've had zero issues. People have been great. So I'm very encouraged. Thanks.
Mark, the only thing I would add to that is just that as things do, we oftentimes get these updates right when they happen. So as, when we're a larger collection of people in schools. And so it takes us a little bit of time to really think through, when you're dealing with 100 and something children and then a staff on top of that, sometimes we do need a couple of days to just get our ducks in a row and roll things out appropriately to a large group of children who need guidance and they need structure and they need to know what the boundaries are and stuff. So I just ask for patience as things do evolve, that there might be a notice that comes out on one day, but it might take us a couple of days as a school system to figure out, okay, now how does this work? How do we get this information out to the kids and help support them and make all this work? So we just ask for patience when things do change quickly so that we can make it work within our schools.
Thanks, Andrea. I feel so fortunate that for most all of this year, our kids our K-8 kids have been in school 5 days a week. Many people I know in other districts either haven't been at all, or they're just going back now, or they're looking at the fall to go back. So yeah, I feel really lucky in that way. Are there other questions from Jandria's report? I don't see any other questions. So if there's not more, no more questions on the principal's report, we will move on to subcommittee updates.
Jessica,
Mhm.
if I may, you were at the last policy committee meeting, and I don't know, are you comfortable giving an overview on that piece?
Sure, but please jump in if I forget things, because I might, because it's been a little bit of time. Basically, we were just going through a sort of cyclical review of the policies, and where the policy is good at, where there's no change needed, we're just leaving as is, and sort of moving on. And where there's adjustments, then those come to the AOS board to be read through twice, right, Mark? And then voted on, is that correct?
Yeah,
And-
that's absolutely correct. And I know you've been coming on to this, but recently, but we've had a strong presence from Tremont. And yes, if it's a major change, it's like the calendar. There's a first reading and a second vote.
Second reading.
But anything that's a review, we just report it out, correct?
Yes, and so that included things like, as Mark mentioned, are just slightly adjusting the public comment policy. We also covered other things like what happens if someone wants to give a board member or a teacher a gift, like just reviewing those policies to make sure they're still aligned correctly. Oh, I've just got a message from Carrie that she got booted off the meeting, so hopefully she can rejoin. But
I think Josh, I think she will, because there's no executive session piece. So Josh, you can let her back in.
yes. And we're working to make sure that the policy committee's aligned with the other work that's happening with the other, like with the calendar committee and with the anti-racism task force and the restorative justice work that's happening, making sure that all of our wagons are moving together in the same direction and following the law. Does that sound accurate?
Yeah, it absolutely does, Jessica. And maybe, I don't know if this is an appropriate time. I was just looking through the agenda. Maybe you were going to touch upon it, but I think Christy had asked to go back, and in the other board meetings talking about the board's having some conversation about priorities, maybe a processing that. And when I say that, there's been a lot of good work done over the past several years, and the pandemic hit all of us. And so how that work is going to be resurrected, both at the administrative level, the board level, to determine, what are the next few months and years look like, and where the focus is going to be. And then also maybe if you want to chat a little bit about, the updates. I think Christy had said when we have our board chair meetings and updates, being able to take those conversations back, or any things that we're working on to the local boards, so everybody's in the loop and know that have that before we have our AOS meetings at the beginning of the month. Those are the only other two things I can think of, Jessica, at this time.
Yes, and hopefully we can schedule a time to have as either at our next meeting or some other time, to sort of go through those priorities, like priority areas that deal with the subcommittees, like middle school, the restructuring, the calendar process, and kind of find out where everyone is on that. What each board member feels should be Tremont's priorities and the priorities of the AOS. That seems important. The only other committee that met, I believe, was the anti-racism task force. And maybe if there's an update from the pre-K committee, maybe that report should also be given. The anti-racism task force will be reporting to the AOS board next month with sort of a update of what's been accomplished during this first year. That there are three sort of subgroups working on restorative justice, some curriculum stuff, and some other areas. Then they'll be reporting, so you can see that there, and then there'll be making a plan for next year. Does someone, Jessica Bass or Jandria, want to report on the pre-K committee?
Sure, I can, because we haven't had a Friday meeting in a little while. Those were kind of temporary meetings to get us rolling. So, so I've been continuing to meet weekly with Julie Meltzer and Rhonda Fortin. We've met recently with an individual from CDS to be able to start to figure out what is the process for child find and what is the process through registration and screening and all of those types of things, starting to get those answers and things figured out. Something to note is just the MOU that I think we had originally shared with this board. We ended up removing the section about CDS because we would end up having a separate like MOU with CDS directly. So that would not need to be in the MOU that we create. So like I said, we had the 2 pre-K forums. We are at a point where Tremont just passed our budget. And so we are all set to move forward with our portion of things. Southwest will vote on theirs in June. And we are in the process of filling out our applications that need to get into the state and working with individuals from the main DOE in the state to be able to take care of all of those kinds of things. And then starting to prep for an ad that would need to be placed once, so if Southwest approves that in their budget, we want to have an ad ready to go so that we can start advertising for the teacher and the support staff positions right away. I think that about covers it. We've taken a look at curriculum. We are looking at a 5 half-day a week. So each 5 days a week, half-day, 2 half-day programs, starting with Tremont in the morning and then Southwest in the afternoon. And then in January, we would flip that so that they each get a time in the morning, and it provides a little bit of equity in programming. And so I think that's kind of about where we're at right now. We're hoping to open up again once budgets have both passed. Then we're hoping to be able to open up registration in June. And we will be doing the screening we decided would take place once we've hired staff for this. We would want them to be able to do the screening. And so the screening would take place in August.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah. Are there questions about any of the subcommittee updates? Seeing no questions, we will move on to our discussion item, which is space issues. And Josh or Mark or someone, I've got another message from Carrie that she keeps getting kicked off the Zoom. So no one else is having any problems, right?
Mm-mm.
No.
I would guess it's something with her network, their internet connection at home.
Yeah, it's probably the Wi-Fi.
Probably
Yeah.
her Wi-Fi. Okay. Well, hopefully she can watch from YouTube or something.
Josh, let's maybe talk to her about a hotspot. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Thanks. Sorry, Jessica. Apologize.
So I think as far as space issues, there's sort of like a 2-part thing here. One is an immediate space need for next year, like getting a portable or some other issue, right? And then, as I'm understanding, and then there's sort of forming a committee or some other mechanism for a longer range space plan. Am I understanding that correctly, to sort of start our direction and move our discussion in the right direction? Does that sound correct, Jandria?
I think in terms of like the immediate space need, I mean, I think that ideally we would have more space for next year. It's not, we don't have budgeted extra money to be able to go get a portable. And we also, like the ESSER 3 funds that we're getting, our space needs are not directly correlating with COVID-19. So we can't use those funds for the additional space. And so I think that's the challenging part, is that there isn't money to be able to go and get a portable somewhere. I think that, you know, we are going to have to do some shuffling of spaces. And I've started talking with some of our staff about some of the shuffling that might need to happen, not significant amount of moving, but because we are currently advertising for another special ed teacher to take on a life skills type program, we need to make space for that. And so there will be a little bit of shuffling that will need to happen. I think that at this point, I think that we can get by, but it's just for another year. If we had extra funds, then sure, I would love to. And Mark's heard me say a million different times that if funds magically were to rain down on us, I would strongly encourage us to look at how we can increase some space at Tremont. But those funds haven't magically appeared. So, I mean, I think that we can make things work looking ahead to next year, but we just need to know that, like, we're really kind of piling people on top of people. You know, we've got multiple people that are going to be sharing spaces, and we are rearranging things as creatively as we can. But as we talk about the use of these ESSER 3 funds and the possibility for additional staff that could be helpful, you have to also consider, where do they go? And that's where it gets really tricky, is there aren't extra rooms that aren't being used. There isn't additional storage for things. So.
Mark, did you have something to add?
Please, and thank you, Jessica. I'll try to be succinct, but I'll get down to brass tacks. Tremont needs to look at expanding. And here's the bottom line. I say this with all due respect. You have data in front of you through an enrollment study that was done by a professional. And again, I'd remind folks that the two communities that are projected for significant growth, most of the district will either decline or flatten. But Tremont and Trenton are predicted for growth. So that's one data point. The second is, as Jandria described the conditions of the school, in my previous position in another district, I lived the portable world. I've lived it as a teacher. I taught science on a cart for 8 years because we didn't have space at a school that I taught at. So I get all that. That's never good for kids. It's never good for staff. And I think it's a Band-Aid approach. I really do. I don't want to discount the fact that if we have the opportunity of funds to do it, but is that the most effective use of the resource? I think you're at a point where you have the data, you need the school, and let's face it, there's a golden opportunity, and we have a community center, a wonderful asset attached to our school. Let's work as a community, work with our select board, work with our citizens. What's the vision? And keep that community center vibrant, because that school is a centerpiece. The kids, the staff, it's a wonderful asset. And the question of middle level and other pieces, those will shed out. But I will say this, regardless of where that falls, wherever people decide to go on that, Tremont needs to expand. You just do. You're at that point. And I say that because, before I left Westbrook, we built a $40 million middle school. And again, planning and visioning, I think that's important, because that $40 million middle school, within 2 years, we were putting on an addition. So I would hope that, it can be a project that touches many people. You got some really great talent on this board that might have, sorry, Roger, but have some expertise that can help out in this area. You've got parents, and you've got people that are engaged, staff. I think you're well positioned to do this. And I've been here for 5 years, and I've watched what's unfold in Bar Harbor, which is a 5-year process, and we're still not breaking ground. I think they're getting close, but I really don't think you have that kind of time because of the kids. And look at the other things that are really exciting, pre-K and all of those other pieces. I just think you're really well positioned, but the communities need a plan, and they're going to want to know what the benchmark is, what the price is, and the price point, and work from there. So I would recommend and encourage the board to get an ad hoc committee going that can start that process. And I think that's your next step in establishing priorities, and then identifying an RFP and potential for an architect or some concepts, or after you have that vision and you've had those stakeholder meetings with all those groups. So sorry, but I wanted to put my stake in the ground. I really think that it's important to do that. And Jandria has heard me say this. I'll battle putting portables on there because I think it's a short-term Band-Aid approach, and I lived it in Westbrook, and it's brutal. So building project is needed because the enrollment's not going down in that school.
So
And
I was going
we've
to
had a lot
propose
of support.
that
Sorry.
we start a committee and that would have, a board member to a select board member, some other community, some staff and administration input. So if you're interested in that ad hoc committee, maybe you can email me to let me know that you're interested in that committee, Roger and other people. Then I had ran into Roger at the bakery, so we already had a
All right.
but we were already chatting about this, but and then we can hopefully that committee could get together fairly quickly to start moving would be my idea. And then, but then also, Gendria, hopefully you will keep us abreast of how we can help in the immediate time, because it's not like the committee's going to form and make a building in a month. So what we can do to help if we can do anything to help with next year's space issues.
Thank you. I definitely will. The reality just is that the building, when it was designed, it was not designed to hold the programs that we offer now. And there's every year in a normal year, I walk new parents through our building, and many of them are parents who went to Tremont originally, and they reminisce about, I remember what this room was and remember what this room was, and it did not house all the things that it needs to house now to be able to meet student needs. So that's kind of where we're at, is that our programs just kind of keep expanding, and it's great because we are providing tremendous education and opportunities for our kids, and but it was not built to do what it needs to do now.
Are there more thoughts, questions, comments on this space issue?
Just a quick clarifier, Jessica. I don't want to get anybody upset because I don't want anybody to think that I'm a fierce defender of not doing portables. I just don't think it's the long-term solution. So,
I totally agree. I think portables are ugly and expensive. And
right.
very
I don't want anybody to think
undesirable.
that we wouldn't be supportive of space issues, but it's
I don't want that to become a fix that it starts out temporary and then becomes something longer term, because like Mark said, it is not an ideal situation at all. It really is a Band-Aid, and I think that's kind of what they're intended to be, is a Band-Aid. I don't want to put a Band-Aid on something that then just keeps kind of dragging out because, well, now we've got that portable, so we've added another classroom or two, and then we don't actually address the big picture issue that needs to be addressed. So that's my hesitancy there, is I want us to really get to the root of what we need to get to.
Other questions, comments, thoughts?
I'd only like to add that I think we're ready. I think this subcommittee is going to do great work whenever it does form. And I do want to I would like to see it come out in a public format where we can advertise for some, just to make sure we're reaching the full community, not just our school community, but some of our just older friends have seen this school transition quite a bit. So as long as we're prepared to also try to involve as many different demographics from the community as possible, let's do it. Let's get it going.
Yes, thank you. I think that's really important because we want buy-in for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have your hand up, Roger?
I did. Maybe we could start with discussing this with the selectmen. I think that's probably the first step. It'd be really good to see how they feel about it and what they, how they feel about going forward.
Anyone else?
Jessica, would it be helpful if I sent, to Eliza, and I don't know if all of you seen it, but just maybe provide for both the board, the community, and the select board, the enrollment study, which, I think it's 2 years now, but it's still relevant. Do you want me to forward that on or include that in the minutes?
Yes, I think that would be great. That had come up in the comprehensive task force recently, as Jessica Bass knows. And so it would be great for more people to relook at that or see it for the first time. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know if I've seen that one, the most recent one. So I'd love to get my hands on it.
Mark, can you do both? Can you send that out to new board members and have that get linked into the minutes?
Yes, absolutely. And actually, we've got turnover on other boards. So this is one of those things I think the board had asked for, retreat information. I think this is another important component that, yeah, I'll absolutely provide that. Thanks. And Jandria, if you add that in the minutes, that'll be great, because that'll be the reminder so I don't drop the ball.
I have no doubt that Daniel is on it.
I would just like to add a little bit to Roger's comment. I'm a little concerned. I'm totally think it's important that we get the selectmen involved, but maybe we contact Chris to kind of help bridge that gap. Cause I'm concerned if we go right to the selectmen with no game plan or just like, hey, we're just trying to have conversation. I just feel like that might stir up like, well, conversation about what? Where do you think we're going? And I don't think we're there yet. So maybe it's a conversation where we just start including Chris, our town manager, being like, hey, this is on our radar. Can we start getting some open communication going? Because I'm a little concerned if we go in front of the school selectmen and it's like, hey, this is what our plan is. And really our plan is to just continue to talk about it until we have a plan. So I'm a little concerned that might be a little bit preemptive.
Yes.
And if I may,
Good
Jessica,
thinking. Go ahead.
Jessica Stewart, if I may, I agree,
please.
because the reverse happens too. Like sometimes people reach out right to school boards, and it's good to talk to the principal and the superintendent. So I think that's a great suggestion. We've had Chris has been phenomenal to work with, and even with his transition, the person that he's mentoring be involved, and then I think that's the right route to go.
Yes, good thinking. Carrie?
I'm sorry, I know I missed some stuff because I was having internet issues or computer issues, but I'm just wondering if I can get a really quick answer in case this didn't come up already, Jandria. What is your minimum number of classrooms that you feel like you need to add, and what is your wish list number of classrooms that you'd like to add?
I don't know if I can answer that like immediately in this meeting. I think that I'd really need to I think if we had even 2 more spaces, that could help us out, but it's not going to solve like the fact that when we do concerts, we're shoving people almost into the bathrooms in the gym because we're so overflowing, or like the challenges that we face because we have a gym that's also our cafeteria, that's also like our public community space. There's some bigger things. We could use immediate space. If we had 1 or 2 additional spaces, that could help us to just get through the next year or so. But again, I am nervous about that becoming like, well, then there's your temporary fix, but then that becomes longer than a temporary fix. So there's just some bigger things. Like, I think we just need to consider, what are we hoping for the school? And, what's our vision for this school? What do we want this to continue to be? I think town center is incredibly important. It's such a great place that events are held and whatnot, but there's some real restrictions with the spaces that we have right now. So I think that I don't know that I can just say to you, I need this, this, and this, because I think that's part of what we need to do with this work, is just consider what is the vision for this school, and then kind of put all that together. Just a couple
broader
of
than that too.
What's that?
It's a little broader than that. It's really, I think at the end of the day, you really, the conversations with all the stakeholders are important, but once you have that information, that's when you want to step back and you want to be working with an architect and a professional that is going to look at not just the instructional and the classroom traces that are the priority, but there's huge numbers of, I was thinking what Jandria said a little bit a time ago, if Jim Sawyer were here from Southwest, he'd tell you, as a former educator, they had probably twice the number of kids and in that space. But he'd also tell you that education now as a board member has changed. And so how we deliver teaching and learning, that's going to look really different. Number one, the storage issues, I don't even have to begin to go down the road. There's no real auditorium or performing arts place for the students. What you have is a gym-a-cafetorium. I call them gym-a-cafetoriums because we had 3 or 4 of those in Westford, gym-a-cafetoriums. I loved it. But so there's a whole bunch of, and not to mention the community center itself. So it's
and
a
the parking.
really broad,
Parking is another issue that we've discussed for several years. Just the whole, you see it right now, the drop-off routine, the fact that when we didn't have the drop-off routine the way we have it right now, then you have kids walking through traffic, and you have kids walking through traffic now, but with adults. And so, there is just this big picture of like the grounds and the building itself, and how we want that to best serve kids in
And
the community.
the big thing is, at the end of the day, Carrie, and you know this because you're doing this work in the high school right now, people, that's all good, but they're going to want to, what's the price tag?
Oh.
And it's like, what do we want? And what, what do we want to afford? Those two things. And I found that process is really healthy. And I think that I've seen it unfold in Bar Harbor. You're doing it now at the high school. And I think, again, at the end of the day, if you approach it that way, you'll get a good, solid project. And I'll just say this, I said it to Jessica, if I may, Jessica Stewart, the question that's on everybody's minds, the money, okay?
Mhm.
I don't see on the horizon this being a priority building project list for the state of Maine. Now, doesn't mean we don't apply, doesn't mean we don't get on the list, but I just don't see it. And unless, and maybe with the money that's flowing out of the federal government, that might change. And that would be a good thing. So we need to monitor that. But I do see this as potentially being a local funded project. It doesn't mean that grants or gifts or donations can't be applied, but state projects right now, like for example, Sumner High School, there's probably, a list that goes about 10 schools on the list. And I just don't see that really unfolding right now, given current finance or fiscal conditions. So just to put it out there.
Thank you. Are there other questions, thoughts? And we'll certainly, as we begin to figure out this ad hoc committee, we'll, bring this back up again at the next board meeting. But are there more questions? Okay, so I think now I'll turn it over to you, Mark. Is that what we talked about?
Just on this one, typically Jessica has been doing the chair of this meeting, but typically on the reorganization of the school committee, the chair, either current or acting, steps aside and the superintendent will take nominations just for the chair. And then once the chair is elected, turn it back over. So at this time, I'd like to entertain any nominations for chair of the Tremont School Committee. I see Carrie's hand. Carrie, is there a nomination?
Yes, I'd like to nominate Jessica Stewart as chair of the Tremont School Committee.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
A second from Jessica Bass. Before we go into any discussion, Jessica Stewart, are you willing to accept that nomination, just so we know going into it?
Yes.
Thank you. At this time, are there any other nominations? Seeing none, is there any discussion on this nomination? I see none. Okay, we'll call the vote. All those in favor of Jessica Stewart serving as the chair of the Tremont School Committee? You can see, I see 1, 2, I see 3 hands. Okay. You're not voting, Jessica? You're voting? Okay. And Eliza's not with us anymore, correct?
She had to leave. She hadn't gotten the email, so
All
she
right.
didn't know that it was, yeah.
I just wanted to note that she wasn't here. I had to leave. So it's 4-0. It's unanimous. Jessica Stewart, congratulations as the chair, and I'll turn it back over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you. Now, because I'm new to this, what other officers do we elect for this board?
You don't have to, but it's I would recommend that you elect a vice chair. It's good to have in your absence or as a backup. And so if you'd like to elect a vice chair, this would be the time to do it.
Okay, well, I'll nominate Carrie Hayes for the vice chair if she's interested.
I'm willing to do that if no one else wants it. I did just take on vice chair of the high school board as well. So if there's somebody else who's itching to get into the leadership of the board, then have at it.
I'll second that nomination.
Okay, is there any discussion?
I just wanted, if I may, Jessica Stewart, hey, Carrie, you've been stepping up in a big way. I just want, and I think it's great. But you were also on the trustees too, so you're doing a lot. You're awesome, but we don't want to see you burn out. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Well, I don't have twin babies, so I'm more worried about the one with twin babies burning out.
Are there any, so we didn't have any discussion, looked like, besides Mark. So shall we have a vote? Those in favor, thumbs up.
Oh, thumbs up.
I see 3 thumbs up. Are you voting for yourself, Carrie? Yes, so 4 thumbs up. Okay. And again, Eliza is not with us, so. Okay. Congratulations, Carrie. You're now the vice chair. So moving on, it looks like we have an action item of authorization for the superintendent to apply for and receive state and federal funds. which is
Jessica,
just-
I'm sorry, can we by any chance just do the bullet above and nominate Tanya? Is
Yeah, I
that,
was just gonna say, we had
Oh, yeah.
another-
she's been really patient with us.
Oh, I apologize. I missed that. I'm sorry. Go for it.
Um,
So we're nominating Tanya. Do you want to give us, share a little
That
bit
would be over to
about
me.
that?
Yes, thank you, Jessica. So I'd like to nominate Tanya Prentice for the position of middle school math science teacher. Tanya, it was a pleasure to meet her the other day. Tanya is coming to us from Oxford Hills area. She probably, I'll embarrass her. I'll say some nice things about her, but she has a background in marine science, which is really going to fold in nicely. But she also has a background in mathematics as well, and has her master's degree. She probably wouldn't tell you this, but she is Oxford teacher, Oxford County Teacher of the Year. Was that 2 years ago, Tanya, or this past year?
Last year.
Last year, thank you. Sorry. And she's we had a nice conversation the other day, Jandria, myself, and Tanya, and I just think we're so fortunate to attract her candidacy. She has connections with the Gulf of Maine Research Institute. She is interested in the initiatives, the partnerships that we have with SOMS, Minel, and other community partners, and just advancing science education. And the one thing that stood out for me was that she's really interested in talking to local fishermen and folks in the industry in terms of how we can really network with our community and our students in ways that are really going to advance science education. We talked a little bit about how the whole balance of climate change and sustainability and working families. And I was really intrigued, and I think that Tanya is going to be a really nice fit. So I'm pleased to nominate her for this position. And Tanya, again, thanks for being so patient and joining us this evening.
Thank you. I feel like I've learned a lot already.
Well, you're not ready to like run off in the other direction, are you? After sitting through?
No.
Sorry it took us so long to get, and I'm sorry I almost missed your item. So we take a motion for that. Is that right? A motion to,
Yeah, so I provided the nomination. Now the board can take action if there's a motion. You can vote on that nomination. And my recommendation is that you do so. Thank you.
So would someone like to make a motion regarding this nomination?
I move, let me get the wording right. I move to nominate, did I just say it, Tanya Prentice?
To approve the nomination,
To
please.
approve the nomination, yes. Okay, let's start all over again. I move to approve the nomination.
Second,
All those in favor, do a thumbs up. Any opposition? No, so it looks like it's 4, and we're missing Eliza. So yes, no, and 0 opposition.
Congratulations, Tanya and Jessica, if appropriate. I don't know if it's appropriate and you're okay, if Tanya can say a few words and then we can let her go.
Of course, yes. Congratulations, Tanya. Thank you for hanging in here with us, and we're so happy to hear from you.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me join tonight and for voting me in. I am so excited for just all the opportunities that are in your area to bring science to the students and to get into the community and be part of the community and to work with the students. And yeah, I've been talking to Dandria and just my mind has been spinning. And my husband's like, you need to slow down. And I'm like, oh, we could do this, we could do that, but I'm ready. Thank you again.
Oh, thank you so much. And we're very, we're very excited to have you. And feel free to stay and listen to the rest of our meeting if you're so riveted, but also I'm sure you have other things to do as well.
I just gave you an out, Tanya. If you,
Please don't hesitate to take it, Tanya. You should say thank you and see you later and go.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya.
Bye.
We'll talk
Thank
again
you.
soon. Take care.
Like Roger had something to say. Was that before Tanya leaves?
Oh, yes. Go ahead, Roger.
I did. I just wanted to mention, actually, you were looking for some, or you mentioned some opportunities about doing some science projects with the middle school, and we're going to be working with the Park Service on a invasive species and sea level rise restoration project right behind the school. So remind me to catch up with you on that.
I will make a note of that. Definitely. That sounds great. Thank you.
Is there anyone else before we say goodbye to Tanya? Okay, well, thank you, Tanya, and I'm sure we'll be seeing you around the school now that we'll be more in person, hopefully next year.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Good night, Tanya.
You too. Bye-bye. Okay, now we are on to authorization for superintendent to apply for and receive state and federal funds. I believe is just sort of a standard thing we do every year, right?
This is an example, Jessica, is one of those things that could be considered a consent agenda item. I can answer any questions, but it seems like I go through this each year, but I can't take any action as an administrator without the board approval. So
Carrie, did you have a question?
I do. Mark, I had forwarded you a message that had come from whatever the state body is about the funding level to 55%. Can you just, can you explain what that means for our schools and if that will give us any additional money in the budget?
Sure. Carrie, I apologize. I didn't see the message yet, but I definitely will respond. But I can tell you that I am pleased to see that the state is meeting its statutory responsibility of funding public education at 55%. They have not done that to date, so that's good news. But it's not great news for us because we're a minimal receiver. And so it's general purpose aid to education, what's commonly referred to as GPA. So schools that are big receivers of state aid will benefit significantly. We're not a large receiver. However, as special education funding costs go up, those costs are reimbursable to us, and those do have a big impact. So I think, to your point, Carrie, what I'll do is I'll look at your message. Nancy and I will come in and put together and provide. I think this is a good piece for not just orientation, but a workshop for the board on funding level sources that we have, grants, entitlements, and it's very complex. And I think it's one of the pieces that we need to make sure that we revisit each year, even with our veteran board members and select boards, so that they have a really good understanding of all of the different sources of revenue and funding we have. So in short, just to get back to your question, it's probably not going to have a huge impact on Tremont or many of our member schools, a significant impact. Schools that are big receivers, like the Portlands, the Bangors, the Westbrooks, the Biddefords, they will see a significant bump in. However, I will say this: there are peaks and valleys. It's great when the aid comes, but in Westbrook, we were a 50% receiver, which means that our aid or revenue largely came from the state. And when it peaked, it was great. But we literally had $1 million swings in our budget. And so what happens is when you have those swings, when you're largely dependent upon state aid, the first things to go generally are positions and programs. And that really is hard for continuity. So I think it's really important as people are hearing this information that my office does a really good job explaining what the impact will be to our local boards and our larger boards. And I'll work with Nancy to do that. Thank you.
Great, Mark.
Are there any other questions? If not, would someone make a motion to authorize the superintendent?
I move that we authorize the superintendent to apply for and receive state and federal funds.
Is there a second? So let's vote with our thumbs, a thumbs up vote. Is there anyone opposed? I see 4 yeses and 0 no's for the person taking the minutes. Okay, so we've crossed. Oops, I just muted myself. Okay.
Next
Our-
one, Jessica, do you want me to just tee up the next one quickly?
Yeah, go ahead.
And guys, I apologize. I got a 13-year-old lab here who's not happy, and I apologize. So,
Okay.
but it's okay. On the other side of the aisle, I got a 13-week-old female lab. So that, Jessica, I don't feel the pain that you do in any way, shape, or form. But having a puppy like that, I'll tell you what, I need to be with people. Sorry about that. Okay. The next one is I like to have a second to explain that, because Bar Harbor being the fiscal agent, this is not a bad thing. It's one of the few times across our district that we can do a consolidated application, which we do. But I want people to know that none of the funds go to Bar Harbor. Bar Harbor is just the fiscal agent for the district. And the only reason we use Bar Harbor is because it's at the beginning of the alphabet. Begins with a B. So that it's only for accounting and auditing purposes. All of the entitlement funds that Tremont students and Tremont School are eligible for go directly to Tremont, not the AOS. So that's what this motion would be for, to receive those and let Bar Harbor be the fiscal agent.
Okay, are there any questions? Okay.
I have a quick question.
If not, I would, go for it,
Yeah,
Roger.
thanks. For Mark, so why wouldn't the AOS be the fiscal agent?
Because the AOS is not it has to be a school, Roger, and the AOS is not. So if we were, how do I want to say this? If we were a consolidated district, we'd probably do it that way, but we're not. And it's a function of who we are as an AOS is the short answer.
Got it. Thanks.
Sorry.
Okay.
It's a
There are no,
topic for the restructuring discussion.
Oh, geez.
yes. If there are no other questions, I would entertain a motion to authorize Bar Harbor to be the fiscal agent.
I move that we authorize to participate in consolidated application for use of Title I and Title IIA funds, and authorization for Bar Harbor to be the fiscal agent for these funds.
Is there a second?
Second, yeah.
All those in favor, thumbs up. Okay, it looks like 4 in favor. Any opposed? No one. Okay,
The last one, Jessica, if you want, I can do these as a slate. And if the board wants to pull them out, that's fine. This again is a housekeeping item, something we do each year. By statute, we appoint a truancy officer, an attendance officer, and we appoint a school physician. So I'd like to nominate or recommend the appointment of Jandria True, principal, as the truancy officer, and Dalton as the attendance officer. And the school physician, the way we work through MDI Hospital. So what we've done is we utilize Cadillac Family Practice or the Southwest Harbor office. So that would be my recommendation, Cadillac Family Practice for the school physician contact. And Dalton for attendance, and Jandria True for truancy. Excuse me.
I would, are there any questions about that? If not, I would entertain a motion to accept those as a slate.
I move that we accept the slate of truant officer Jandria True, attendance officer Ann Dalton, and school physician Cadillac Family Practice.
Second.
All those in favor? Okay, it looks like 4 in favor, and any opposed? No. Okay, so that item of business is complete. As far as other business, I think in our, not for tonight, but we should set a time to discuss our priorities per Christy Lasquadro's request. Is there any other business that needs to be brought to light?
I'm not aware of any at this time, Jessica. I don't have anything else.
Jessica, if I can just add to what you said, because some of the folks here weren't in the meeting when Christy made that recommendation, but there has been a discussion. There was a discussion on Monday about making sure that we have a priority list of projects that we want to be moving through. And as I said at the meeting that night, I just want to reiterate, I think the way that the trustees does it, and in having a real list of priorities, that things can jump the line if needed, but we kind of have things ranked as to what's our top priority, what's our second priority. And we have been moving down through that list in the 4 years that I've been on the trustees board. And I find it's an efficient way to keep projects moving forward.
And before we, kind of come into this discussion, perhaps at our next meeting, for new people or people who maybe want refreshment or weren't there, some of those past issues were the calendar, arriving at a calendar that everyone across the district, a shared calendar that everyone is satisfied with. The discussion of the middle level 7th and 8th grade proposal, and what else? And then of course we have, some of our ongoing subcommittees, like the anti-racism task force. And in our case, we have the space issues, but as an AOS, we really have the calendar and the middle level and the restructuring discussion. I mean, some of these discussions overlap with each other, but those are there more? Just so people can be thinking about it before our next discussion. Mark or Jandria, did I miss any?
I think you got a pretty good list, and there'll be information again from past board workshops and other pieces that'll be coming your way for you to, that'll help, I think, continue the discussion.
Jessica, I think the only thing that I would add to that is just, I think some of these things are, some of the things that are on my mind in terms of like staffing or like social work, or even like, the position of principal being just kind of all encompassing, and how to make, consideration of what that looks like moving forward. I think that these things, that kind of melds into some of these other things that need to be ironed out first.
Yes, some staffing discussions. Okay, that's thank you, Jandria. And so if there's no other business, then
Question.
go ahead.
Yeah. Can I go ahead, Jessica?
Is that Jessica? Ask, go for it.
Yes,
Yeah.
please. So my question is, and I know we do workshops at the AOS level, but has the Tremont board ever done any kind of strategic planning with the board in itself? Like, is that something that maybe this board wants to try to start doing, is do some strategic planning, or especially where we are thinking about taking on a big project? Maybe now would be a good time for us to all kind of sit down as a board and work through like
Like
what are-
a board retreat, might be like, I hate to use that word. I know
I
it
know,
puts
yeah,
fear in the eyes of many people. I was like thinking of that, and I was like, no, people are gonna panic if I say this, but like, some kind of, 3-hour chunk or something that we could
Mhm.
spend
You can
together,
always,
ideally in person.
I-
Mark, did you want to say
I-
something?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, just to Jessica Bass, thank you. I'm not aware of any that have been done at the local level, but it doesn't, you absolutely can and should do that work. You just have to remember, if you're gonna meet as a group, if it's not an action item, you don't have to have a meeting. You can schedule a workshop, but it needs to be open to the public. That's just, and I would encourage that. And I think anytime you have the opportunity to network, to vision, to do strategic planning, it's good stuff. But just, I think before moving forward, I'd like to work with Jessica Stewart and Jandria and just making sure that we dot the i's and cross the t's to make sure that we're having meetings that are open to the public and everybody's feeling comfortable. But yes, I'm a strong supporter of that. And I think it's a good suggestion.
So shall I work with Mark and Jandria to put something together and send out a doodle poll or something of one might work for people once we figure out what format would work? Does that make sense, Jessica Bass, or anyone else?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Okay, future agenda items. Well, certainly space should be on our future agenda.
Can we just go back 1 second to next date?
I missed date and time of next meeting. I'm sorry.
I'd just like to
Yeah.
respectfully request we consider meeting in person if conditions stay the same. So just wanted to note that, if we do meet on the 10th of June at 5:30, hopefully we can work with Jandria to do that at the school. Just want to give a heads up. Thank you.
Mark, can I just put something out there? So the 10th is the evening of an event that we're looking at for 8th graders. And I think administrators are going to be requested to be there at that event.
So
So
we can look, Jessica, we can work with you on a different date. And we don't have to put that out now, but I can work with you and Jandria. And again, we could do a doodle poll, but whatever date, and that's fine. Looks like we got to change anyways, but whatever date, I hope we can do it in person. Thank you.
Yes, I think we would all like to be in person if possible. So yes, we'll work on that. Okay. So, and future agenda items would be space. Any update on this workshopping, visioning process that we might be undertaking. We would, I assume Jandria will update us on, promotion may have happened by then, but if there's any update on that and sort of where we are with that.
I think pre-K is
With
another
the
one.
pandemic and pre-K. Okay.
Jessica, as you
Um,
mentioned, promotion, just so that you know, as board chair, you're invited. And last year we weren't able to have board chairs there, but in the past, the board chairs have helped to pass out certificates and stuff. So that's just something for you to note.
Yes, thank you, Jandria. I will plan to be there. And priorities are, we may, depending on what's happening with our visioning date, but we could continue to discuss priorities. Are there other agenda items that people have?
Jessica,
Karen?
to continue that conversation about the mental health that we've kind of gone down on and off.
Yes.
And I know that the letter that was submitted referenced that, and I think Jandria just referenced that as well in her list of things that are important. Looking at maybe a social worker or an additional resource for the kids and teachers if it's available to them as well.
Yes, and Jennifer, you may have proposed ideas for that. Is that possible? Did I hear that in your report? Yes, okay. Thanks, Carrie. Any other agenda items?
Not necessarily agenda item, but quick comment.
Mhm.
Maybe I'll reach out to you. Maybe we can just discuss changing names a little bit. Every Jessica, I keep turning my head. So I'll let everyone know that they can refer to me as something else moving forward. And I'm so thankful they're not talking to me because it sounds like a lot of work. So, but it's really nice if we can get that figured out.
Oh, yes, that's a good idea. I'd be happy to change my name anyway, because like every person my age, like 2/3 of them have my name. So yeah, I'm on it.
We could call you the chair or
Oh, yes.
exalted,
Yes, that's actually
exalted
perfect.
one.
Yes.
At one of my employments, people called me Tuffy Elf. You can call me that. Whatever you like, I'll insert anything. Yes, we can do that. Okay. So I think that brings us to a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Okay, you can vote by leaving, I believe. Okay. Bye.
thank you, everyone.